What is going on, everybody? What is going on? The Catch fam, my name is John Dawson, and in today's video, we are hopping into some underdog pick'em lines that I absolutely love moving into week 15 of the 2022 NFL season. If you guys do enjoy today's content or find it helpful, be sure to hit that like button on the way in, hit that subscribe button. Of course, if you guys are new to the channel, it really does help us out when you guys hit that like and consider subscribing. And of course, if you guys are new to Underdog Fantasy, you can double your first deposit up to $100 with promo code The Catch. That promo code link is in the description down below, and that promo code is on the screen for you guys. You guys can be like me and place a bet at halftime, like I did during the Titans-Chiefs game, and win $10,000. Or you can be like me and lose $8,000 when Jalen Waddle does not get those 4 receiving yards that you really needed him to get. By the way, be sure to play and gamble responsibly, and of course have fun with it. Without further ado, let's hop into today's video. All right, first up, I'm going to talk about J.K. Dobbins, whose higher and lower is at 49.5 rushing yards. I absolutely love Dobbins at the higher. You guys know that Dobbins was one of my must-start running backs for the week. It's worth noting that Gus Edwards has a pretty good line at 39.5 rushing yards as well. But let's talk about this matchup for Dobbins and the rest of the Ravens backfield. Cleveland Browns have allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing running backs so far on the season. Overall, they are one of the worst run defenses in the league. And Dobbins, he looked very good in his second return from injury on the season, had 120 rushing yards last week off of 15 rushing attempts, 8 yards per carry. I think he could easily have a similar performance this weekend against the Cleveland Browns. This is an away game, but last week's game was also an away game, so I think that Dobbins is in a really good position. If you guys want a little bit of a lower line, like I said, Gus Edwards is currently sitting at 39.5 rushing yards. I also like the higher for Gus Edwards, who had 66 rushing yards last week against the Steelers off of 13 attempts and just over 5 yards per carry. But I really want to hone in on Dobbins, who really looked like the explosive back last week. I think that him hitting 50 rushing yards is extremely doable and a very easy over to take for your guys' underdog parlays as we approach week 15. All right, sticking with the same matchup, let's talk about Deshaun Watson. I like the higher on Watson's passing yards, which would take him to at least 216 passing yards on the week. We know that he looked really, really poor in week 13 through the air. 22 passing attempts, 12 completions, 131 passing yards, and 1 interception through the air. But he really improved in week 14, 42 passing attempts, 26 passing completions, 276 passing yards, a touchdown, and a pick. I think that Watson can easily hit over 250.5 passing yards this week against the Baltimore Ravens. I think this game could get a little bit dicey. While the Ravens defense has looked very good in the last couple of weeks, the weakest part of this defense overall is the secondary. So I do think that Watson's going to have plenty of opportunities. It's worth noting that Amari Cooper's been a little bit banged up, but he should be playing in this game. He got 7 targets in week 14, and he had 9 targets in week 13. I'm a little bit worried about Cooper's props, but I will tell you guys, in this same matchup, I do like Donovan Peoples-Jones, who had 12 targets last week and 8 receptions. When we look at his lines for the week, I really do also like 3.5 receptions. If you guys wanted a different line, if you're not necessarily ready to trust Deshaun Watson, I would take DPJ over on the receptions. But overall, like I said, I actually think that Deshaun Watson hitting 216 passing yards is a very doable prop as we approach week 15. All right, next up, I've got Josh Allen, and believe it or not, well, I really don't want to bet against one of the best quarterbacks in all of football right now. I want to take the lower on Josh Allen's total yards. So it's a combination of his passing and his rushing yards, sitting at 289.5 at the moment. Guys, if you do not know, if you haven't seen somehow at this point in the week already, the weather for this game is going to include a lot of snow. It is supposed to be snowing before, during, and after this game. Just don't realistically think that Allen is going to hit a combined total of 290 passing and rushing yards. And when we look at the last 2 weeks, Allen didn't do that against the Jets at home or against the New England Patriots in that away game. Although when we look at those 2 games, I mean, the Bills were kind of playing ahead in both of those games. That might not be the circumstance against the Miami Dolphins in week 15. But at the end of the day, I'm going to look at the weather here and just think that the Bills are going to try to implement their run game a whole lot in this matchup. Don't get me wrong, it's possible that the Dolphins break away in this game, that the Bills need to throw the football more and rely on Josh Allen. But at the end of the day, I think that this is a pretty good prop as we approach week 15. All right, the next player I want to talk about is Isaiah Pacheco. I'm going to take the higher on his rushing yards, which would set him at least 71 rushing yards on the afternoon. He gets the Houston Texans, a team that has the worst run defense in the entire NFL, the team that has allowed the most fantasy points to the running back position on the season. When we look at the last couple of weeks, Pacheco had at least 66 or more rushing yards in his last 3 games, but no more than 70 rushing yards. So this is a pretty specific prop, right? But when we look at those last 3 matchups, he had the Denver Broncos, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Rams, 3 teams that overall in the season have been pretty good against opposing running backs. When we look to week 11 against the Chargers, team that has not played well overall in the season against running backs, he had 107 rushing yards. We look at week 10 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, once again, another team that has not played well against opposing running backs. He had 82 rushing yards. Here in week 15, in an away game, doesn't really matter to me. He gets a beautiful matchup against a Texans defense that can absolutely not stop the run to save their lives. So I think barring any injury to Pacheco, this is as close to a lock as you're going to get on the week as we move into week 15. All right, one more running back I want to talk about very quickly is Ezekiel Elliott. I would definitely take the higher on Zeke's rushing yards. It's week 5 of the season. Zeke has had more than 55.5 rushing yards in every matchup except for week 11 against the Minnesota Vikings when he had 42 rushing yards. The Jacksonville Jaguars are in the bottom 10 against opposing running backs so far on the year. And the reason I like Zeke over Pollard, and don't get me wrong, I think you could take Pollard and probably hit his line as well. He's at 52.5 rushing yards. I just like Zeke because I feel like he's kind of the closer. You know, if the Cowboys kind of get ahead in this game, trying to close things out and take time off the clock, I always feel like Zeke is the running back who they're going to turn to as opposed to Tony Pollard when it comes to the second half of the game. And like I said, Zeke has been extremely consistent. Really, when we look at things, he has had 15 or more touches in every game he's played in this year except for weeks 1 and week 6. We know he's going to get good volume. We know that he's going to have a good day on the ground. I think this is a very, very solid prop as we move into the week. All right, I want to give you guys 1 or 2 receiving options to go over very quickly before we close out the video. But Cole Kmet has had 6 targets in every game since week 9 except for week 11 where he did have 4 targets. He's had at least 3 receptions in every game since week 9. But when we look at the receiving options for the Bears in a game against the Philadelphia Eagles, where I would imagine the Bears will be playing from behind, Chase Claypool is out. We know that Darnell Mooney is out. We know that there's not really a true number 1 receiver for the Bears out there. Chemistry between Fields and Kmet has been there really since Fields emerged kind of mid-season. So we know that Kmet is more than likely going to be Fields' number 1 option out there. And at worst, his security blanket throughout this matchup where the Bears are going to have to throw the football. So I think Kmet over 3.5 receptions is a really good line to take moving into week 15. All right, I got to give you guys 1 receiver to take a look at. There's a couple options I like, but ultimately I'm not huge on receiving yard props. A lot of the reception props haven't necessarily come out for the weekend yet, but I like Mike Williams a lot over 65.5 receiving yards. When we look at what he did last week in his return from injury, 6 targets, 6 receptions, 116 receiving yards. This week he gets the Tennessee Titans, one of, if not the worst secondaries in the entire NFL. And this is going to be a competitive game. Both of these teams need to come out of this matchup with a victory. When we look at the playoff seedings right now, we look at what Trevor Lawrence did last weekend against the Tennessee Titans. I would imagine that Justin Herbert will have similar, if not better, success against Tennessee Titans this week. I think that Mike Williams is going to absolutely tear it up. I think he's going to have a fantastic game, and I think 65.5 receiving yards or more is an easy bet as we move into the weekend. That'll do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy the content today or find it helpful, be sure to hit that like button on the way out. Hit that subscribe button, of course, if you're new to the channel. It really does help us out if you guys hit that like and consider subscribing. And of course, if you guys are new to Underdog Fantasy, you guys can double your first deposit up to $100 with promo code The Catch. That promo link is in the description down below. And please let me know in the comments section if you guys plan on entering any parlays this weekend. What props are you guys looking at? What props do you guys like? What do you think of the props in today's video? And of course, if you guys have any questions on how to play pick'ems through Underdog, please let me know. I'll be happy to assist you. And be sure to join our Discord, link in the description down below. We have a couple active threads for Underdog pick'ems and Underdog best ball as well, if you guys want further insight on how to win some money through Underdog Fantasy. With that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening, and remember, you saw it here on The Catch.